because the next panel is completely virtual. So this will be an interesting challenge. But we want to do two things with CITES today. We have a strategic understanding of why CITES has come together. 14 different companies working towards common objectives. And as the Secretariat for CITES, SIBC can say, it is quite an achievement to have all of these different actors meet every week, discuss the way forward, and collaborate in a very evidence-based approach. So I'm going to ask on screen our next panel. I'll start with Professor Anup Chawla from Indian Institute of Technology in Delhi. Hi, Anup, great to see you. We have with us Ujjwala Karle, who's Deputy Director, Technology Group, Automotive Research Association of India, colleague of Dr. Mata you heard earlier. And then we have Ingrid Skosmo from VTI, who I will hope is with us. And then we have Pandu Ragarao, perfect, from Altair in Pune, or Hyderabad. Now, everyone you see here is part of the CITES steering group. There's a very strong government structure to how CITES, a governance structure to how CITES runs. And what we want to highlight with today's panel is that we come together as CITES to create certain common objectives, but CITES is made up of individual, experienced industry and technology and academic partners. So I would like to ask the panel here before us today. Now, you've heard what Dr. Mathai said and maybe what's said this morning in terms of these are critical areas for collaboration as we move forward to our common objectives, both in 2030, 2070. But if I were to ask all of you to reflect on CITES, both in terms of the partnership and the 14 members, but as individual industry and academic actors, the values you see here in a collaboration such as this. Anup, I'd like to start with you.
First, thank you, Ati, for inviting me to this panel. I've been listening to the discussion that have followed in the previous panel and even before. It's really interesting because CITES platform does give us it's a live example of very close collaboration, very close interaction happening between three major pillars, which are the academia, industry, and the government agencies. And all these three agencies, they bring different strengths to the table. They have, for example, the industry brings in its products, its management skills, and the network on the ground. The academia brings its research tools and analysis capabilities, and the government brings in the decision making and the policy element. Okay? Just to take an example of what we are talking of in one of the major activities that are planned at the moment, which is looking at, for example, crash data that is collected in India. We do know that the data that is currently there in India is based on what the police collects. It's essentially what we refer to as generic data that is collected, which is there in huge numbers. But then that data by itself, we know, is not sufficient for, let's say, automotive design or for coming up with the safety initiatives or even taking an informed decision for safety policies. So the members that we have in CITES, they do have expertise in handling different type of data and handling in-depth data, in analyzing the data in maybe the large number of fields like whether it is crash reconstruction, crash analysis, epidemiology, and things like that. So the task that we have, and it's not an easy task, but we do have the strength on the table. The task that we have is to be able to integrate all these different types of expertise and move towards a national framework, move towards a national platform, which India as a country can use in the years to come, and then move towards a zero vision from accident perspective that we want to achieve. I mean, nobody likes the tag of being the accident or the crash capital of the world. Nobody likes that, and we do want to move from that to a position of where we can be proud of our safe roads. Okay, it's not an easy task, but in order to develop in order to move toward that, the infrastructure that is needed, the different the expertise that we have in the group, is in a position to design that infrastructure and take it forward. And that is what I hope to see happening through the CITES platform and through the support from government agencies and the industry, and then take it forward in the maybe years to come.
I think that's a really important point that you mentioned also about the use of data. Because, of course, data is in abundance, but how do you actually make it impactful and effectful? And, of course, Altair has been critical in the partnership to allow for that transition of information into action. Pandu, I'd like to come to you.
Thank you, Arti. Thank you very much. It has been really a pleasure interacting with the very diverse set of people able to contribute to this. And as we see, simulation and data-driven models are actually driving the design. Data becomes the most important part of it. That is where we help them. We help the complete consortium as a partner in bringing the right platform to starting from acquisition of data, visualization of data, processing of the data, and making sense and using the data for AI and ML, and also allowing it for further simulating the use cases, different use cases, possibly during this course of the activity, we are very confident that we will come out with very relevant use cases, which will lead to the further development of the products as well as the infrastructure. So we bring in the platform, technology platform, which is being used by all the partners. We help in collecting the data. We are contributing in visualization, processing, and using it for the other processes. That makes us really feel very excited to be part of this team.
But actually, I would like to ask you a follow-up question, because Altair now has been involved in many of the activities happening on the Sweden-India corridor. You were one of the instrumental partners in the Hack for Sweden initiative that happened last year or 2 years ago. And you've seen a number of different activities happen where we're trying to push forward discussions such as citizen road safety. How do you feel the CITES partnership has really kind of, as I've asked before, cracked the code?
Very excited. I'm actually seeing a very positive impact because we are seeing a different perspective and addressing the local issues. And it is happening both ways. And as you know, the earlier speakers have said, the foundation of collaboration has been so strongly laid by this particular setup. So we are able to contribute, and I see them actively participating, adding a lot of value. We are exchanging the challenges which are there in India. We are relating with some of the solutions which are there and kind of localizing it. I see a great future for this collaboration and cooperation.
Thank you so much. Ingrid, I'm going to come to you as well next, because, of course, here in the last panel, we had Professor Panjari as kind of the voice of India. Ingrid, you're here as the voice of Sweden. How is this collaboration working for you, both in terms of CITES, but also who you are in terms of your work with VTI?
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us to this exciting panel and discussion. So VTI is a governmental or National Transport Research Institute, and we tackle a broad range of transportation issues, but especially on the road side. And one important theme, obviously, is safety and road safety, and the research that will help us get towards Vision Zero, no killed, no seriously injured on the roads. And as has been mentioned before, data is super essential here, both to get the relevant data and then to have the knowledge and the possibility to use it in a wise way. And we see that CITES is an opportunity to generate knowledge and to widen and to calibrate our existing knowledge, our existing data, to sort of get outside a smaller bubble and to have a wider perspective, because that will benefit road safety, since we then get a much wider perspective. And that way we can also further develop research questions, and within the CITES project, we can develop them together, and we can also have the projects, the CITES projects, help answering those questions. And here, obviously, crash and vehicle safety is important, and so is also behavior of road users, pedestrians, vulnerable road users, drivers, and drivers of cars, motorcycles, personal vehicles, as well as those of commercial vehicles like trucks and buses. And one relevant use case where VTI is very active is the driver behavior in buses, and especially driver attention, driver vigilance, or driver drowsiness for that matter. And studies that on behavior that the cities project we are doing on a coach bus, that will give us important data, and it will enrich our knowledge and also, of course, help the use case as such. And here we can also bring in our extensive experience in simulators. We have such tools here, and we look forward to share them within the project. So to summarize, I can say that VTI sees a very high value in the city's collaboration, and we are excited to contribute to the science and to build the science that helps us all advance to a higher degree of road safety, and also, of course, to contribute to it in India.
Ingrid, thank you so much, but I want to come back to you for one more question. When we spoke earlier, there was something you said that I think really should resonate in this room and online, is that CITES is really bilateral with a biodynamic feedback mechanism. It's not just one way. It's not Sweden and India for India. It's actually working together for benefits on both sides. And you actually mentioned about the improvements in what you saw and the value and learnings that you drove and got from CITES in your previous conversations that allowed you to be a better researcher, to take on new questions as you move forward in the work that you're doing. Just give us a 10-second comment on that, because it's important for the room to hear that.
Yeah, well, I think the majority of data that we get is in Sweden, maybe in Europe, and you catch some situations. But if you think about, for example, everyone talks about automation. If you want to understand what a vehicle can do and traffic situations, you have to have a huge perspective, a lot of situations. And I think just by moving to India, which is can be very different in many perspectives, I think this gets us into a much more realistic view of what can happen to a vehicle. And it also makes it not so I mean, if you then want to export this knowledge to industry, it's probably better the broader the scope, because then the market can increase. So I think this is a very important step.
Thank you so much. And of course, Ingrid, you're being polite. It's different in many ways. That's okay. You'll be on the bus soon in Bangalore as well.
I hope so, yeah.
But Ujjwala, I'll come to you last, because of course the repository of the information that CITES and its partners are putting together, both in terms of strategy, in terms of objectives and vision statements, as well as the projects, ultimately come, of course, to industry action being taken by partners like Volvo and Autoliv that we heard earlier, but also actors like yourself, because ARI is really Automotive Research Association of India, is a stakeholder in the architecture of road safety for the country. We're so happy to have you as part of CITES, and of course, the ripple effects and the impact of discussions that we're having here today, not to make too big a point of it, rests on your shoulders. So, Ujjwala, what would you say has been the importance for you of CITES, and where would you like to see this go from step to step?
Thanks, Arti. Thanks for this opportunity. I think one thing I have seen in the entire panel is creating data and need of that. I don't want to push upon that. I would like to start with this is creating data, Indian databases and Indian use cases is in the DNA of ARI. And when we are trying to go with the emerging and advanced technologies and complex solutions, it's one line which is important, which I have learned from this, is together we can. Nothing can be singly done. It is together that we can offer and do that. And that's where we are here as a part of the entire ecosystem. The whole data, yesterday we were discussing, and whole data set that how to create data set, how to do DOEs, what are the Indian experiences. Different stakeholders are going to bring in their different expertise. But not only that, once the data is created, it will be looked into in a different perspective. When we call it as AI or machine learning, or try to have the research problem statement to be solved and look at the use cases and scenarios, it will have a different interpretation for different people in a very different way. Just to summarize, I think Anup started with saying that how the data is useful, but definitely we are having a different stakeholders in the entire partnership. So data for government, as we said, for policy making, support technologies, which technology to be adopted and not today. When we are talking about vehicles, OEMs, the tier one suppliers to have improvements on their designs, optimizing their solutions, which will work in the local use cases by themselves. And then various test agencies, validation agencies, methodologies to create standardization, to create evaluation basis, and to create infrastructure inputs for that matter. See, when we say about automation, we have been seeing that a complex situations that India would have in terms of different type of infrastructure. Like we have 22 official languages. We have, I believe, the regulatory vehicle classes, which are much more than that. And when we're talking about creating data for the corridors, which will be important to create value proposition for multiple stakeholders over there. And as I started my discussion by itself, that it cannot be done together, because we have to work together to deliver solutions for India or global, which will create impact. So it is enablement to all, including the startups and innovation ecosystem, because the solutions will be very innovative, different to go about that. And maybe the use cases could be very useful from them where there are no regulations already in place. And we will have something which will create databases and use cases which will deliver them, ensuring that their solutions are reach out to the market rate. So we all together here are to create that enablement of creating impact and innovations for the road safety. That's what from my side. And that's what ARI looks upon as this very important partnership. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I let you go, and we have 1 minute left, I would like to do one lightning round, which no one is expecting, just so the audience knows. We meet in December, and of course, Ujjwala, you touched on Bharat NCAP, which is waiting notification. I'd like everyone to spend 10 seconds on what you think is a key action that needs to be taken in order to reach Vision Zero globally. Let's not make it India or Sweden, but what is one of the key impacts? I'm going to start with you, Anup. Anup, I think you're on mute. We'll just get the...
Sorry.
Yep, go.
Yeah, in order to achieve a Vision Zero globally, I think what is extremely important is to come up with the innovative solutions based on the specific needs of every individual region. Okay, India has safety needs which are different from those of the West. The traffic scenarios are different. So we need to come up with solutions for that, and for that we need to understand where exactly the problem lies.
Great. Anup, I'm going to come to you, Pandu, next. 5 seconds.
Yeah, I think we need to leverage the work being done and make the best use of them to recommend the product infrastructure in all the respective contributors, enablers to bring in the safety.
Thank you. Ingrid, I'm going to come to you last. I'm going to come to Ujjwala for 5 seconds.
It's, I think technologies, global solutions are local is one part that I'm looking at where we are to develop. And second, I believe it's awareness and education is very important, which we are missing beyond technology, which will be very, very important for achieving that Vision Zero.
Thank you so much. Ingrid, coming to you as Sanju walks up on stage to knock me off.
Well, I think a lot has been said, but I think we have to, as Anup said, go local. We have to go beyond vehicles, not just think about car crash safety, but also think about people and the behavior. And we have to go beyond the cities, not cities, but cities, so that we sort of grasp where the problem really is and try to address those, to find how to really make a difference. It's not just technology, it's much more.
Thank you so much. Cities in India, December. Let's go local. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aarti, and for this 2 marathon sessions of moderation. So really, I think we should give a big round of applause to Aarti.